Took a little bit of a break, as you can tell by the fact that there weren't any videos the past couple of weeks. I don't know, I'm in just the weirdest kind of malaise, kind of crossroads with my training. Still dealing with not so much the back anymore. My shoulder has kind of been giving me trouble, but more than anything, just an inability to recover in a way that I am used to. And I don't know if that's just the new normal because of the added stress of full-time parenthood, the lack of sleep, still catching up on sleep, the diet. You know, I am trying to lose a little bit of weight, so maybe it's just because I'm in a deficit, but I'd say for the last month, I have been so disheartened, upset, just not with my inability to recover and train in the way that I'm used to. I've had to drop sets, I've had to drop intensity, and no matter what I do, no matter how many tricks I pull out, it seems like I can't get ahead of the recovery curve. So because of that, I have changed programs again. I don't recommend doing this as much as I'm doing, but I switched to a full, I guess you could call it a bodybuilding program. It's Bald Omni Man is a YouTube creator that I have watched a couple of their videos, but like I said, usually I just go on Boost Camp and I just kind of look through the programs and see what we got, and it popped up. It seemed like something that I could really sink my teeth into in terms of still being engaged with the movements. A lot of times the bodybuilding movements for me are kind of like superfluous and I kind of get bored with them, but this seemed to have a decent enough mix of compounds as well as an interesting enough progression method that I feel like I could get a lot out of it. So I'm on week 2 of that. Today we've got close grip bench and then a bunch of upper body accessory movements. So what I'm gonna try and do is kind of talk through my process during the movements about like how to get the most out of them, how my mindset changes between bodybuilding and powerlifting training, so that hopefully you can grab something out of that. I'm kind of rudderless with where the direction of where this channel is going because the inability to train the way that I want to, train towards a goal is really kind of getting me down a bit in terms of putting out these vlogs. But here we are. The only thing we can do is to keep doing the best we can. So we're gonna try and do the best we can with all the content that we put out. I'm gonna try and do a couple more educational videos like I talked about in the last few videos. So we'll see. I'm gonna warm up a bit more, and then we've got a couple sets of close grip, and we'll work our way through the workout. So the top set is 12 reps. And then for the back downs, take off 20% of the working weight for 12. The trick here is finding a working weight. I think we're supposed to be around an RPE 8. So I'm not 100% sure where that will even be. That's 6 reps. Feel pretty decent. I guess we'll go 100. I think that'll be probably around an 8. This is one of the bigger issues with bodybuilding training for me. Not having a solid percentage base to get weights from without a huge library. This happens with accessories all the time, but I don't know what my estimated 1 rep max is on close grip bench, so kind of just guessing. But that's what week to week changes are for. Week 1 I hit 90 kilos. So, and that felt pretty easy. So, make a decent jump to 100 and see how that feels. The main focus here is rep quality. With any program where hypertrophy is the goal, rep quality takes first place in terms of priorities. So, I want to make sure that everything looks repeatable, that we're keeping tension on tricep and chest as much as possible. You can't really just turn your brain off and push. Yeah, that was a pretty good weight selection there. I think I probably could have gone like 5 or 10 kilos more, but like I said, the rep quality was good throughout, so we'll take it. All right, we'll drop back. Ooh. We got 2 more. Oh man. First back down, dropped about 15% off the top set. This is part of what I mean when I talk about the difference in, bodybuilding, powerlifting training for me. You look at 85 kilos on the bar, and my pride says, oh, well, this isn't enough weight, This is wimpy stuff. But trying to follow the program to the letter of the law, trying to focus on what the reps are actually giving you rather than the weight on the bar, I think it's key with any type of bodybuilding training. Yeah, because you get to the end of the set like that, still getting a good burn, good pump. You can already feel the triceps engaging quite a bit, but there's not that same level of, joint fatigue, or joint damage, so you're able to really stay in the movement. It's just a different mindset. When I'm powerlifting, or when I'm going for a heavy double or single, I try to get my mind elsewhere. Just kind of let the body take over. But here, I want to stay more present in each movement. Are my elbows tucked in the right way? Am I taking that pause? Am I controlling my negative? These are all things that I want to be present with and present for so that I can get the most out of 85 kilos, right? It's just a mindset switch for me. Kind of helps. It also helps mitigate the ego, because it is tough. Third and final, I'll just say, if you are not utilizing a close grip bench press, and either you want to build your triceps up or you want to strengthen your bench press, competition bench press, you're leaving gains on the table, as they say. I love this movement. It's just different enough to get a different stimulus while still being in the bench press family. Whew. Yeah, man, that's hard. Getting a good pump, I just can't let my ego get in the way. I think that's the main thing I'm learning. Especially once you get a couple years of training on your belt, you start hitting some numbers that you feel are respectable or that you think is strong, right? And you have to enter a phase of training where you're not really coming close to the top end. That can be daunting. And for me in the past, that's meant, kind of half-assing my workouts, kind of just going through the motions, because it's like, oh, well, I'm not really touching 85-90% of my top end strength. I'm not really doing the movements that I like or that I want to do. How is this going to help me in competition? But all those things are sabotage. Every single time you come in and you put fourth grade effort, even if it's 85 kilos, I'm putting fourth grade effort, trying to get my rep quality good, trying to stay present in the movement. Every single time you do that, you're adapting either physically or mentally. You're learning something, you're creating a good stimulus for growth, getting stronger. You have to believe that because it's true. Now the process is slow, right? You're not gonna get the one-to-one, come in one day, get 5 pounds stronger the next day. That doesn't exist when you are for me, 4 years in, 10 plus, 20 plus, right? It's all about the 1% advantages, the 1% gains, right? And that could be mental sometimes. Like for me, this is a mental block. I need to get over this. Like all training is valuable training. So I am doing a style of training that I would not normally do to the best of my ability in order to kind of understand that. And then when my body cooperates with me and we get back to the style of training that I prefer, that I like, we'll take all of that experience with us and that training will be better. It's a massive puzzle. And sometimes you lose the forest for the trees, especially me. I miss the wider, broader, year-long training for the day-to-day. Oh, well, my progression wasn't as good, or, I had to drop back in weight. All that stuff is valid. They're valid thoughts. But taking the long view kind of removes those thoughts because it shows, one day of training is a drop in the bucket towards the grand scheme, year-long, 2 years, 3 years, and you will have setbacks. It's not a linear straight line up. As I'm fond of talking about, the body is not a purely mechanical system where you get true outputs for the inputs that you put in. That's not how this works. The body's resistant to change. Homeostasis is a thing. So you may not see the results of a block of training for months. And then all of a sudden, you start to realize, hey, my warm-ups are moving a little bit better. Or, I'm starting to notice some definition in some areas of my body that I feel like I'm not really making any progress on. It's because over time, putting in true inputs, you will get true outputs, just not instantaneous. So I'm telling you this because this is what's going on up here, trying to keep me going. I mean, it's been 3 months of just, ever since I had to drop out of my meet, just garbage mental talk and training. So, whew. All right, moving on. Traditional lat pull-downs. Next up, neutral grip. I'm really enjoying the neutral grip. I find that it helps kind of engage my lats a little bit more. Nothing wrong with the regular bar. If you're working with a commercial gym and that's the best thing you got, that's totally fine. A little bit of a gas bubble. Don't you hate that? It's like, oh my God, am I having a heart attack? No, dude, relax. So the progression here, it's 10 to 15 reps. So I don't think I've ever really discussed how I go about that. If I'm given a rep range, what I want to try and do is pick a weight that I can hit the top end of the rep range, especially on set one. If I'm not doing that, oftentimes I feel like maybe I'm overdoing it a little bit. This is just personal preference for me. You can say, okay, I'm going to hit the bottom end of the rep range because I want to use more weight. That's totally fine. But for me, I like to at least hit the top end of the rep range on rep one. And then if I get some fall off, I'm at an appropriate weight. If I hit the top end of the rep range all the way through, like if I hit 15, 15, 15, next week it's an indication, okay, we need to add 5 or 10 pounds. So it's an easy way to build in some, you know, some more strict parameters to weight selection, which I feel like is a lot of questions I get asked is, how do I choose the correct weight? Am I working out hard enough, right? And you learn as you go through your process, but you can't often listen to your body. Like oftentimes your body wants to take the path of least resistance. So you won't be as accurate in your weight selection if you're not putting in some type of governor, some type of stricter, you know, rules on you to be like, okay, now it's time to add weight. Like you could hit in the top, if I'm hitting 15, 15, 15 for the next 4 weeks, I don't think that I am getting an adequate enough stimulus to stimulate growth. Now, you're still getting something out of it, but we want to try and get as close to perfect as we can with all this stuff. So. Yeah, I think that's a solid weight to start with. Still getting around, you know, an RPE 7 or 8 towards 15. So we'll see if we see that drop off. But that's that. All right, we'll film another one. Talk through a little bit of form for the lat pull down. Let's enter into Coach Jonah's form corner. The lat pull down is one of those movements where it feels really good to throw on a bunch of weight. I will not lie. This is one of the bigger ego fluffing movements out there, right? So I understand the want and the desire to throw on a ton of weight, to just heave, to just go as hard as you can. And sometimes that's totally fine. On a program like this, with progression like this, I'm trying to stay as strict as possible. Because if I'm trying to meet the top end rep range on each set, and then I start cheating around rep 10 or 11, I'm not really reaching the top end rep range. I want to keep my form as uniform as possible so that I know truly as I can get with an imperfect system, like we talked about, that I'm reaching the top end of the rep range and that I can adequately and safely and justifiably move up in weight, right? So I don't want to be swinging, I don't want to be heaving backwards and forwards. So I'll show you. When I set up for the lat pull down, what I think about is stacking my ribs the same way that I would stack when I'm bracing for a squat. I don't really want to be in a super arched position because then I'm taking the onus off of my lats, especially with a neutral grip. I want to be stacked so that as I pull, I can engage the lat all the way down, get down to about chin level, slowly come back up, right? We don't want to be, hulking out. So you see here, I set up. I'm in position here, legs are locked, and now what I want to do, see how I'm kind of in an arched position here, I want to brace down so that when I pull, I'm engaging the lats as best I can, right? And the temptation is to get into this arched position here, but if you can, fight it. Stay in this braced, full trunk position to keep the tension on the lats. I don't even know how many that was. I think that was 10. Another thing, your spine will usually follow your eyes. So what I'd like to do is find a spot kind of midway down on the pole to look at. So I'm looking at this yellow right here, and that will keep me in the brace, kind of locked in position. Now, you're never going to be perfect, right? You're not going to have a perfectly rigid spine. That's just not how the body works. But trying to get as close to neutral as possible, I think really helps. Especially, when you're getting up in the reps, when things are starting to burn, you need those cues outside of yourself to kind of keep you locked in. All right, so I think that was 10. I don't really know, I was talking too much. But that's kind of my process for setting up the lat pull down, especially the neutral grip lat pull down. Lateral raises, the bane of my existence. I'm not a huge fan of this exercise at all, but I want to try and do exercises that I don't like, because oftentimes if I don't like an exercise, I will just neglect a body part, and I feel like I've neglected my shoulders quite a bit. So one thing I'll say, I know a lot of people struggle with just shoulder discomfort on this movement. One thing that, I think a lot of people don't realize is there's no law that says you have to go directly out to your sides, especially if that causes discomfort or pain. Like for me, that is miserable. So what I like to do is kind of get a slight bend, and we're going at like a 30-degree angle out in front of me. Leading with the pinkies, but not so tipped over that I'm going into shoulder impingement. I'm still getting a perfectly good stimulus on my side delts here, but now I can do the movement without discomfort, which is gonna lead to better outcomes, because now I can really push myself. I can really start to feel more of a burn in my shoulders rather than that pain of shoulder impingement. On this, I'm kind of just going by feel rather than having a set rep range. And on sets 2 and 3, I'm throwing in some myo reps. So myo reps is just a good way to pack in a lot of volume, especially in a pre-fatigue state. So what happens is you do a straight set. For me, usually I get to around 10, take a 2, 3, 4 second break, come back with 3 to 4 reps, take another break, 3 to 4 reps. My top is usually 25. I don't like to go past 25, but I usually don't make it there. Make it to like 18 to 20. So if you're looking for a way to kind of spice up your smaller accessory movements, myo reps can be really great. I like to kind of set the pace with my first set as a static set. So say I hit 15, then I'll match 15 and do myo reps after that. So I just hit, I think that was 10 or 11. So I'll match 11, myo reps after that. And this is what I'm talking about. The fatigue is already way higher than I feel like it should be. So I'm not quite sure what that's about. I just need to, I guess, re-engage, buckle down more with my sleep. But I feel like I'm sleeping pretty well, but we'll get there. We'll figure it out. Just build back a little bit more fitness, I guess. Get to 10, and then we'll throw the myo reps in there. The other thing I'm trying to do is keep my scap depressed as much as possible, so I'm not getting a ton of shrugging involved. That could be another thing that kind of mitigates some of the usefulness of this. Whew. Again, this is what I'm talking about. 15 pounds. If you've got an ego, that can feel pretty bad. And sometimes it does, but I still feel like I'm getting a great workout. My volume is on track. The intensity is still intense enough. I'm using enough reps to get towards that, 2 to 3 RIR threshold to say, okay, check, this is a good enough stimulus, as much as we can know that, right? Some things are just kind of up in the air. But as much as bro science and regular science has told us, 2 to 3 RIR with a decent number of sets, you're pretty much in the ballpark, 95% of the way there. So those are the check marks that I'm getting, right? And just improving week to week, trying to improve the rep quality week to week, the focus, And sometimes that will come with an increase in weight, but it doesn't have to, right? There are a lot of different ways to progress, especially in bodybuilding. Strength is a little bit more direct, which is kind of why I gravitate towards strength improvement. But when the body doesn't want to cooperate, you got to do something different, right? And it's either shift my mindset, a little bit more joint friendly training for a little bit, or just don't come to the gym. And not coming to the gym isn't an option. So here we are. All right, we're gonna do some bicep curls next. Committing a cardinal sin, curls in the squat rack. This is why I train in the morning, so there's not that many people here. Okay, the progression on this is the same as close grip. Do a top set of, I think it's 12. Drop 20%, 12 and 12. So we got 65 on here. I don't know. I don't really do a ton of direct bicep work, so this is all kind of a kind of a crapshoot. But we'll see what we got. Honestly, pretty right on. So I'll take that. All right, drop down to 45. Whew. Something I'm trying to mitigate with especially barbell bicep curls is just using any type of momentum. It's like I talked about, just want to be standard across the form, across all reps, all sets throughout week to week. Because that's the only way I know how to accurately gauge progress, right? I talked about this a little bit in the last video, but if you get to, week 3 and you've loaded so much weight up that you're doing strict form on week 1 and 2, and then week 3 you've put on a little bit too much weight, so now you're starting to, hip thrust the bar up. Are your biceps getting an adequate stimulus week to week, or are you just kind of egoing the weight up? And there's always going to be a little bit of that. Like I've been saying throughout this whole video, it's not a perfect system, but we need to strive for a little bit more standardization across the board so that, you individually, or if you're working with a coach, you can have as much of an accurate representation of where you are actually week to week in terms of fatigue accumulation, if you're actually making progress, all that stuff. So I looked back on that other set, a little bit too much swingy for my liking. So we're going to try and stay as strict as we can. I feel like that was better. The other thing that does is, even with 45 pounds, even with the empty bar, with good intent, I'm still feeling a pump. I'm still feeling that burn in my biceps, even though it's only 45 pounds. And that's saving my elbows a little bit. So there's always different avenues to train. All right, I'll film tricep pushdowns, and we'll get out of here. You guys know the drill on tricep pushdowns. Not really much more I can say about it. So let's just do it. That's good. Honestly, I think I probably undershot that, but that'll do it. All right, folks, so that's where we're at. You know, sometimes a part of me is like, why am I even filming these vlogs? But the mission of the channel, like I always say, is to help people get strong no matter what phase they're in their training. So, you know, you may be experiencing a setback much like I am, or you may be on the top of the mountain. I'm still hoping that you can get something out of this video. You know, that you can get maybe a tweak to your form, maybe a mindset shift, maybe you just want some entertainment, somebody to work out with. That'd be great too. So that's why I keep putting these out. It's harder to do when you don't have something that you're working towards, you know, when you're not in meet prep or something like that. But I really do want to, you know, continue to make content, to continue to grow the channel, just to help people get stronger, because it has been such a positive influence in my life, and I hope it's going to be a positive influence in your life. So, you know, if you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe. There's a link to Boost Camp, 2 free weeks in the description. We're going to keep rocking. I'm going to try and put out a review of 531 on the channel, hopefully sometime later in the week. So subscribe if you want to see that. We're going to do a little bit more program review, just kind of getting the nitty gritty of programming a little bit more, I think. So thank you guys so much for watching. Get strong and stay strong.